So it looks like we popped a check engine light here in my 2007 Ford Edge, and checking out what it was, I went to my local auto parts store and they were able to do a free code check for me, and it looks like it's been popping a P0060 code, which happens to be the Bank 2 Sensor 2 heated oxygen sensor. So I'm going to take a look at what I need to do to get that fixed up.
Alright, I'm under the vehicle. So this here is, for your orientation, it says the driver's side front tire. And that is the passenger side front tire. Looking up at the exhaust pipe here. And that looks like one of the cats. And if you see there, right about the center, that's the post-cat oxygen sensor right in the center of the screen. And if I look up a little further, you should be able to see there's the pre-cat oxygen sensor up there. But this I think is bank 1, so we're looking at bank 2, and I should be able to see that from popping the hood. So go up there. So, pop the hood of my Edge here, and gonna tip down. So right there I think is bank 2 sensor 1 oxygen sensor right here at the front. It's ahead of the catalytic converter. And I think you can barely see back there where my light's pointing. There's bank 2 sensor 2. So if I follow that blue wire up, it eventually goes to this guy right here on the side. And that little piece of wire there, you might be able to see, is all frayed up. So that might be part of the issue. I'll take the sensor off and we'll check it. Alright, there's the passenger side front tire. You can see the exhaust coming down here. And back up, there's the sensor, bank 2 sensor 2. And there's the connector for it. So I'm going to do a little bit of work, pop that connector apart, and I'll pull the harness side up through the top so that I can inspect that wire on the harness side. Alright, I managed to get that connector out. What I had to do is get a little screwdriver and monkey with that tab on the top, and it came right out. There's the end of the connector. It's pretty well anchored there, so we'll see what I can do to move that. It looks like there's some other evidence of chewing in here. So maybe a rodent or something got in here and was chewing at some of the wires, which is unfortunate because that's going to be a little bit more troublesome than just changing out this sensor. So I'm going to try to get this thing unanchored and see if I can't test that harness yet. I got that connector up. It was kind of a pain. I could probably demonstrate how I did it here on this front side sensor. Let's see if I can't make that happen for you. It's a little way more accessible than that one, but to get the gist of it, there's this tab right here that I might push that down, and a little bit of wiggle, I can pull that out. Then this connector is on a track, and there's like a little black tab here. I'm going to push that down with my screwdriver, and usually a two-hand job, but if I push down on that, I should be able to pull this forward, and then it comes off that track, so I can loosen it up. So this one's loose. It's not fully off the track, but there's not a whole lot of play there. So you can see that the tab is out. I'm going to push it back in, clip it into place, but you can see how that you can slide that out. Put this back in place too. So that's how that came apart. You can see the damage there to the wire a little bit. So I'll test that and see what's going on. So I pulled back some of the sheathing on this end of the harness. There's a blue-white wire, a green-white wire, and a straight white wire, and then a purple-red wire that you can see is completely frayed here, completely chewed apart. Probably what's causing that code pop. So usually when you have an issue with the harness like this, I would recommend to replace the harness itself. This is a pretty major one. If you're really confident, you could patch that. You know, although I wouldn't recommend it, because when you're messing with vehicle electrical, that can cause some downstream problems. But you know what, I'm going to try to patch this myself. Again, I don't recommend that, but I think doing that versus replacing this whole harness here, it's going to be tougher. I would definitely probably, I'm not confident enough to do that myself. I would take it into a shop to do that, and I imagine that would be kind of pricey, so I'm going to try to patch that up for now. Alright, so I spliced some wires together and I have my ugly patch there in place. So I'm going to feed it back down, get everything hooked back up. And I did want to talk to you a little bit about other cases where that P0060 code triggers. Alright, so I got that reconnected on the clip there. Here's that bank 2 sensor 2 oxygen sensor. And typically what happens is when that code goes, the sensor itself is bad. So you'd replace the sensor, call it good. This one, pretty accessible with a wrench. Not all of them are. I'll show you a little bit of like a little tool that is helpful for these. And if you look at the wiring, this one has 2 whites and then a gray and a black. And typically the 2 like wires are for the heater element for this sensor, and the other 2 are for voltage and then a signal back to the ECM to let the ECM know if the air fuel mixture is adequate. So typically, to test the sensor, the quick way I'd like to do it is to get my ohm meter out and be these bottom 2 pins there. Check to make sure that there's resistance there. From what I've read, it kind of depends on the sensor, but it should be between 1 and 40 ohms resistance there. Like if you are checking resistance and it's infinite, you got a open circuit on your sensor, and the sensor needs to be replaced. Other people will take the sensor off, and the top two nodes, they'll hook it up to the voltmeter, and they'll apply some heat to the tip of the sensor after they have it out. And what you should see there is voltage start to raise as you add heat to it. Usually it's between 0.1 and 1 volt feedback, and so if you're not seeing something within that range, it's usually an indicator that the sensor's bad as well. So I am going to do a quick resistance check on the bottom two here, just to make sure that there isn't an issue with the sensor itself while I have it exposed. And if not, I'll get it hooked back up, and we'll see what if the check engine light goes off for me.
When I checked the two white wires on for the sensor there, it read back 6.5 ohms, which falls within that range that I mentioned earlier, the 1 ohm to 40 ohm. So that's a good indicator to me that there isn't an open circuit on the sensor itself. Gives me a little bit of a better feeling that it's not an issue with the sensor itself. I did want to show you a little set that I have for pulling these sensors off if you have to do so. This is a sensor socket kit. Looks like a regular 7/8 socket, but it has a groove here so that the sensor wire can feed through there, and you can still get you can still turn the nut in there. That one below, the bank 2 sensor 2 sensor, was pretty easy to get at with a wrench, but there are other cases like that one down there, if you can see it. Yeah, that guy. It's back in there a little bit, and be really tough to get a wrench in there, so getting a socket on there is helpful. See if I can't put that socket on there just to see. So there that is. You can see the groove where the wire's coming out. I got that socket on there good. The other thing for this too is if you have a torque wrench, when you're putting these things back on, typically you torque them down to somewhere between 35 and 45 foot-pounds. Usually I try to go for that middle range, so about 40 foot-pounds should be fine. Torque that back on. I reset the check engine light by removing the battery cables off the battery. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend going to an auto parts store and having them reset it with an OBD, or if you have one yourself, you can do that. So that cleared the check engine light, but after reattaching the battery cables and getting in to do a drive around, my low tire pressure light came on, but after my drive around it seemed to reset itself. My tire pressure is fine. So anyway, it looks like my patch job worked. No check engine light. Although I don't recommend doing a patch job, I recommend having a mechanic replace the harness. But either way, it looks like it works for now.